What's up, guys? I'm Noah Cooper with Athletic Body Systems. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to build your own workout program. Knowing what routine to follow is a huge barrier for people stepping into the gym for the first time. I know whenever I was a beginner, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of went into the gym hoping I was following the best training program. Over time, as I've gotten more experienced and I've watched other successful people train and learned from a lot of different people, I've realized there really is no best training program. There's actually a lot of different ways to accomplish your goals. It just comes down to understanding what a training program actually is. All a training program is just an organized collection of exercises. How you organize those exercises is going to depend on you as an individual and how you like to organize things. If you ask two really big, jacked guys at a gym what their training program looks like, you're probably going to get two very different answers, and that's okay. Neither one of the answers is really wrong. Usually, guys like that who have gotten really strong and built a lot of muscle and who've been lifting for a long time and been really successful, they know how they need to train because they know how to organize things in a way that makes sense for them, and they have their training structured in a way that's very enjoyable. So, I'm going to teach you guys how to do that same thing. I'm going to break it down and make it easier for you to understand. So, let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay, guys, I put this together because I think it's going to help a lot to have some visuals to go along with what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and just dive right into this. So, like I said before, a workout program is just a collection of exercises. So before you put the program together, the first thing you need to do is pick your exercises. How you pick those exercises is going to be based on these big six movement patterns. I've talked about these before on the channel. These are just some basic movements that you need to do, and you need to get strong at these movements if you want to pack on some strength and muscle. So the six movement patterns are a horizontal push and pull, vertical push and pull, and a squat and a hip hinge movement. I'll talk a little bit more about these, and I'll give you some examples of exercises for these, and I'll talk about what muscles you're going to work during all of these movements. So whenever you pick your exercises, you want to start with just two compound exercises per movement pattern. Talking about compound exercises, guys, I'm talking about your big stuff like your bench presses, your squats, deadlifts, things like that that use a lot of muscles together. These have a higher potential for progression. They generally have long ranges of motion, which means you get a good stretch and a good contraction. So when I say higher potential for progression, what I'm talking about is you can get really strong at these movements. You can add weights in small increments, so you can add 5 pounds at a time to these lifts. Long ranges of motion, generally when you perform these correctly and you're not doing things like a big arch on a bench press or like a sumo deadlift, you can train your muscles through a very long range of motion. That's how you're going to get a good stretch and a good contraction. So you guys know the basic exercises, the movements, what they look like. That's what we're going for here. And then, of course, we have to do the isolation exercises, but these are the icing on the cake. They should not make up the majority of your program. The compound exercises, your big lifts, have to come first. Of course, you can't have a cake without the icing, so we're going to throw the isolation exercises in there. We're not going to neglect them. We're going to train them just as hard as the compounds, but we should always focus on getting the compounds stronger first. As always, basic is better. These exercises are easy to learn, simple to execute. We don't need any gimmicks or flashy exercises here. We're going to stick with time-tested basic exercises, and we're going to get strong at all of them. So let's go ahead and organize these by body part and muscle group. So I talked about the horizontal push. That's going to be training your pecs, so your chest muscles, okay? Horizontal pulls are going to work your lats and also your middle back and upper back. That's going to depend on how you execute them. That's not something you really need to worry about right now. Um, Vertical push, that's going to work your delts or your shoulders. Vertical pull, that's pretty much just lats. Get a little bit of upper back in there, but that's mostly just lats. Squats, that's going to work quads, glutes, and adductors. Hinges are going to work your hamstrings and your glutes. So glutes get worked on both of these movement patterns. The hamstrings do not get worked during squat movement patterns. I'll talk about that some more when I get to that muscle group. Alright, so let's actually pick the exercises. I've got a collection of exercises here. This is your horizontal press, aka pecs. This is going to be stuff like your bench press, push-ups, anything where you're just pushing the weight away from you. Build a big chest like Arnold here. Right. All of these exercises are compound movements that are going to work your pecs. So I said before that you want to pick two exercises, two compound movements per muscle group to get started. Any of these are going to work. You can pick any two of these exercises. It just comes down to personal preference. I think whenever you pick things like this, you should kind of think, okay, when I pick my first one, I'm going to pick this one for this reason. And then when you pick your second exercise, you want to pick the second exercise to kind of fill in the gaps that your first exercise isn't really going to cover. So all of these exercises on their own are fantastic, but they really make a more complete muscle. They make a better program. They'll allow you to build more strength and fully develop your muscle when you pair them together. So for example, let's say you pick bench press as your first exercise. Amazing exercise. It's very stable. You can lift a lot of weight. You can perform the exercise um, very like suited to you. You can like grip it in a way that you need to. You're not locked into anything like you are with a machine. Time tested exercise. Arnold used the bench press. Now, when you pick your second exercise, you can do dips, push ups. I mean, you can pick any of these. I'm going to say throw in the incline bench press. That way, you get a little bit more upper pec development. And these are not the only options you have. I'm just giving you some examples of some different compound movements you can do for chest. But yeah, I would say bench press and incline bench. You could do bench press with a barbell and then do incline bench with barbell or dumbbells. It really doesn't matter. The point is that you're picking two really good exercises and combining them together to get complete muscle development. The way the incline bench can kind of fill in the gaps is you get a little bit more upper pec development. If you use dumbbells for your incline bench, you get a deep stretch that you really don't get on the barbell, although the barbell gives you more stability. So it's not about, which exercise is the best. It's about picking two great exercises and then combining them together and then just being consistent with those. That's really your best option, is to pick two really good exercises. All right, now let's move on to the horizontal pull. Opposite motion now. We're going to work the lats and we're going to work the middle back, the upper back. This is going to be stuff like your barbell rows, chest supported rows, any kind of rowing where you're pulling the weight towards you horizontally like this. So depending on how you perform this exercise, like if you keep your elbows tucked closer to your sides and you keep the weight pulled more towards your stomach, you're going to work a little bit more lats. You take a wider grip and you pull the bar up here to your sternum, up towards your chest, you're going to work some more upper back. Middle back's going to get worked quite a bit. This will help you build some thickness in your back. Any rowing variation will work. You can do your classic barbell row. You can pick a chest supported row. Those are great because it kind of helps you avoid cheating, takes some stress off your low back. You can do a seated cable row as well. Nothing wrong with that. But again, there's no right or wrong answer. It just comes down to what you want to do. So for this example, I'm just going to choose the one-arm dumbbell row. Moving on now to vertical push. This is for delts, aka shoulders. Any kind of vertical pressing motion up over your head. So barbell overhead press, seated dumbbell press. You can do either one of these, seated or standing. Machine presses, be careful with these because a lot of machines, this is true for a lot of machines in general, but specifically overhead pressing, it's very hard for, like, I've been to a couple different gyms and I've seen, like, just from what I've seen other people working out with, like on Instagram, YouTube and stuff, a lot of machine presses where you press up overhead, it's hard to get into a natural movement pattern where you get the weight fully locked out over your head. That's one of the most important things in an overhead press, is making sure you lock out with the weight fully up over your head and then driving your head forward at the top to kind of finish off the movement. A lot of your machine press variations are just going to make it hard to get through that natural pressing movement. That's just been my own experience. So generally, I prefer free weights for overhead pressing, but at the end of the day, pick an exercise you enjoy. So for this example, I'm just going to pick the barbell overhead press and the seated dumbbell press. These are two that I really like. Vertical pull, not much to say here. This is going to build your lats, going to give you that big V taper, build the width of your back. Pretty much just pull-ups. If you can't do pull-ups, you're going to be stuck with lat pull-downs, which lat pull-downs are good too, even if you can still do pull-ups. There's not really a whole lot of variety here. Just pull-ups and lat pull-downs are really the only options you have. Now, squat movement pattern. Pretty straightforward. You're going to build the quads, glutes, and adductors. You're going to build a lot of muscle mass doing these exercises. You're not going to build the hamstrings doing this. A lot of people will tell you that you're going to work the quads, glutes, and hamstrings when doing squats. You're never going to really take your hamstrings anywhere close to muscular failure because they really just work as a stabilizer during your squats. This is primarily for quads, glutes, and adductors. So barbell back squat, leg press, Bulgarian split squats, lunges. I didn't include it, but hack squats, Again, this is not meant to be an all-inclusive list of exercises here, but we're just going to throw in the barbell back squat. Again, very basic exercise, time-tested lift. We're going to throw in a Bulgarian split squat. I talked about earlier with the pecs, kind of filling in the gaps. Bulgarian split squats are great because they let you get in some extra quad and glute volume without really being fatiguing on your low back. A much lighter variation. Doesn't mean it's any easier, but it's just going to decrease the overall amount of fatigue you have in your program. And lastly, hip hinges. This is where you're going to build big hamstrings. Glutes are going to get worked in these as well. This is where you're going to do stuff like deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, back extensions, good mornings, anything where you're pushing your butt back like this and getting that deep hamstring stretch. This is an RDL here, what this person's doing. Yeah, we're going to go big or go home. We're going to pick the deadlift and the Romanian deadlift. Again, these are just examples. Any of these will work. All right, so these are all the exercises that I just highlighted in the previous slides. So I've got it organized here by movement pattern. You can see we've got 2 compound movements per movement pattern. Now I'm going to simplify this a little bit. We're going to change this from movement patterns to body parts. Now it's starting to look a little bit unbalanced here. It's not that it's unbalanced, it's just you got to look, legs is going to include the squat pattern and the hip hinge pattern. So we're still having those 2 exercises per movement pattern. It's just now they've been combined into body part for simplification. We're going to simplify it even more here in just a few minutes. So now that we've got the compounds out of the way, we've got to get some isolation exercises in. I'm not a fan of minimalist training. I think that you can build a lot of muscle with compounds alone, but I think you'll build muscle a lot faster and you'll get the physique that you're really looking for when you throw in the oscillations on top of it. So this is where we're going to build some big beefy biceps, trash our triceps, punish the pecs, destroy the delts, create a quandary for your quads, hammer the hamstrings, crush the calves, and annihilate the abs. I'm not repeating all that, so I hope you got it on the first time. Look at this guy, curling the easy curl bar. So for biceps, any curl variation is going to work. There's lots of different curl variations. This here is just a small example of different curl variations you can do. We're just going to pick one. We can always add more later. I'm just giving you a starting point. So let's just get something like an easy bar curl. That's what this is. This is an easy bar. I'm doing a strict curl in this picture, but again, it doesn't matter. Just pick a curl variation you enjoy. Now moving on to triceps. You can use any of these exercises. If you're just starting out, just pick one of these and get really strong at it. You can always add in more later because not all of these exercises are the same. Some of them are going to work a little bit different, but the idea is going to be the same. You start with your arm bent and then you just extend your arm until you're fully locked out at the bottom. And you're going to be working your triceps pretty good. Let's just start out with a basic tricep push down. You can use the rope, you can use a straight bar or a V-bar. It really doesn't matter. It just comes down to personal preference like a lot of this stuff does. Moving on now to pecs. Whenever you pick an isolation exercise for your pecs, you want to pick something that's going to take the triceps out of the equation. So instead of doing a pressing exercise, you're really just focusing on getting a good stretch down at the bottom and then a good contraction here at the top. So you can use a dumbbell fly. Arnold was a big fan of dumbbell flies. Or you can use a cable fly, like what this guy's doing here. I'm a big fan of these, but it really doesn't matter. For this example, we'll pick cable flies. And then for delts, delts are a little bit different because you have a different movement that you can do for each head of the deltoid. So if you want to work the front delt, front raises, and then the side delt, do lateral raises, and then rear delts, you can do rear delt flies. I think front raises are a very redundant exercise, and I think most people are not really looking to isolate their front delt. I think the front delt is a muscle that's very unlikely to really make or break your physique. And I think that doing any direct front delt work is just kind of unnecessary. But most people want to work the side delt because it gives you that kind of rounded look to your shoulders. That's what most people want to work on. So for this example, we're just going to pick a lateral raise. And then quads and hamstrings, I have just grouped these together because you've really only got 2 options here. One for each, actually. So seated leg extensions and then seated hamstring curls. You could do lying hamstring curls as well, but this is just the ones that I've picked. These are the ones that I enjoy doing. Any kind of extension and then curl. And then, of course, the ever-elusive calves that never want to grow no matter what you do to them. Really only got a few options, just any kind of calf raise variation. It doesn't matter so much which variation you pick. The biggest problem for people is that they just kind of skip calves, or they don't execute the exercise properly. Okay, so current exercise selection, again, things are looking pretty unbalanced here, especially with the legs portion. All the stuff I just added, all the isolation exercises, now highlighted in blue. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, so I've combined the biceps and triceps into an arm section. So I know this looks unbalanced, but I've color-coded everything here to show that even though there's a lot of stuff going on for legs, we've still got 3 exercises per body part, with the exception of arms, back, and then abs. I didn't even throw in a slide for abs, because there's really so many options you can do. I actually just recently made an ab workout video, so please go check that out if you haven't. But overall, this is actually pretty balanced. You can always tweak things if you want to, but this is a good starting point. Now you want to organize things. This is when you actually put together your program, and there's different ways you can do this. You can organize your program based on body part. You can do it to where you have a day where you're training your upper body, then your lower body, push-pull legs, full body. These are your basic workout splits that you'll see on the internet that most people recommend. None of these is really right or wrong. Each of them kind of has their own benefits and trade-offs. It really just comes down to how you want to organize it. So if you're someone who looks at this and says, well, it makes a lot of sense to organize your training based on body parts, then a body part split would be a good idea for you. If you're someone who thinks, okay, I think it makes a lot of sense to come in here and just crush my upper body on this day and then rest, and then maybe I'll go train my lower body by itself this day, upper lower will be great for you. If you're someone who wants to crush it all in one day, full body is the way to go. It just depends on how you want to organize it. So I'm going to break each of these down, and I'm going to give you some examples of each split and how you can structure them, because depending on what split you pick, you're going to have to organize your days a little bit differently. It's really not that hard. You just want to make sure that you get those movement patterns in. You're just going to have to organize them and arrange them a little bit differently depending on what workout split you choose. So this is an example of a body part split. This is not an end-all, be-all example. There's many different ways to do a body part split, but generally it's going to be something like chest and triceps on one day, back and biceps on one day, and then maybe shoulders and abs, and then legs. Okay, so why chest and triceps? Why back and biceps? Triceps and chest are pretty much always working together, same for back and biceps. So it really just makes a lot of sense to work those muscles together, and this is usually how people set up a body part split. So as you can see here, we've got all the chest exercises put together on one day, and then we're finishing off with the triceps push down. So we've got all of that covered in one day. The next day we're doing back and biceps. We're starting off with deadlifts. Now, why am I starting off with deadlifts on a back day? Deadlifts are kind of a full body exercise. They're going to train your spinal erectors a lot. It's going to work your lats isometrically. Deadlifts can be put on a back day depending on how you organize things. And we're putting deadlifts here instead of on leg day so that we don't have to squat and deadlift in the same day. And to just get a little bit of extra leg volume in so that it's not truly like you're training each muscle once a week. Anyway, we've got the pull-up, the barbell row, the one-arm dumbbell row, the easy bar curl. Now, the one thing I did differently here is I got rid of the lat pull down, so we're only doing one vertical pull variation, and that's okay. We're still getting a ton of back work done. It's just, the trade-off with this is, I feel like when you do a bro split, things can be kind of redundant if you're picking a lot of the same movement pattern to do in one day. That's why I kind of like to split it up. But again, that's just my personal preference. I like to split things up throughout the week instead of just doing the same movements over and over on one day. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. It just comes down to how you want to organize it. Shoulders and abs, nothing really special here. Barbell overhead press, seated dumbbell press, all the exercises we picked out earlier. I've thrown in abs here just to get in a little bit of extra work on the shoulder day, and because it just kind of makes sense. We had an empty space here, and why not just go ahead and throw in some abs? And then the leg day, we've got the squat, Bulgarian split squat, all the quads, glutes, and hamstrings get worked together. So we're doing a lot here on the leg day. This shoulder and ab day is not too busy. Overall, pretty balanced. Pretty heavy leg day. This is just one example. Here's another example of how you can do it to make it a little bit more balanced. So this is not a true bro split or body part split where you're only training that one body part in a session. You can do something where you do chest and back on one day, then quads and abs, then shoulders and arms, and then glutes and hamstrings. So I've split the leg volume up to make for a little bit lighter sessions for your legs. The stuff I've highlighted in blue over here are exercises that are repeated. Generally, whenever I make a program, I don't like to repeat an exercise more than once a week. That's just for variety and to diversify your training a little bit. There's no rule that says you can't do the same exercise more than once a week. In fact, some people will tell you the exact opposite and say, well, it doesn't make sense to only do this exercise once a week. Again, personal preference is what is going to guide that decision. So this one is a little bit more balanced. You got all your chest exercises and then your back exercises here. Again, when we did this, I got rid of the one-arm dumbbell row just because I wanted to keep things a little bit more balanced. You don't want to do too much in one session. Quads and abs, I threw in the abs down here before the calf raises. This is just a little bit cleaner. Everything's more balanced. You're not killing yourself on leg day by doing too much. I moved deadlifts back over here to the glutes and hamstrings day, took it out of the back day. So yeah, really not a whole lot to say there. Shoulders and arms makes a lot of sense to train that way because there's not a whole lot of movements you got to do for your shoulders, and you've got plenty of time to work your arms there at the end. That's just one example of a body part split. You can absolutely do this and make fantastic gains doing this. Okay, now let's move on to the upper-lower split. This is my personal favorite way to set up a training program. I like upper-lower splits just for the fact that I've said personal preference and the way you like to organize things is what's going to guide your decision on how to build a training program. For me, I feel like upper-lower just makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to come in and organize it like, okay, let's just hit upper body all in one day, and then lower body, then rest, and then repeat. To me, this just makes a lot of sense. You can get every exercise that we added to that list earlier done on an upper-lower split. That's what I've done here. The stuff highlighted in blue is stuff that's repeated, and then the standing calf raises that I highlighted in red, I didn't select those earlier. That was not part of the original selection. I just added it in here just for a little bit of variety. So I'm going to kind of walk through this a little bit. The first upper body day is a little bit more chest focused because you're starting off with bench, then you got the cable flies down here. Of course, you got some shoulder work in here as well. So we're really hitting everything on this upper body day, finishing off with the biceps. The second upper body day is more shoulder focused because you got the overhead press and the lateral raises. But if you look at this, all the exercises we had from that list have been included. Everything is balanced. We've got the same amount of exercises in each day. I really like organizing training like this. I feel like it makes a lot of sense. You can do supersets too with upper-lower splits, so you can do bench press supersetted with pull-ups, but that's a different video topic for a different day. For now, you can just do this as straight sets all the way across. Your program could look like this, and it would be fantastic. You could also do something like this. So the green is where I've swapped exercises, and I made the first upper body day pretty much all chest, so you've got bench, incline bench, and then cable flies, and I've saved all the shoulder work for that second upper body day. So it's kind of like a hybrid between an upper-lower split and a body part split. This is more in line with what I do in my own training, because to me it just makes a lot of sense to organize it that way. Again, personal preference. This is just one example of a way to organize a training program. With this program, you're hitting every muscle twice a week, and it's just an overall great program. You can always add stuff in if you want to. You can always tweak stuff. Again, personal preference is king. All right, now let's move on to push-pull legs. This is a very popular split, and it makes a lot of sense on paper to organize things this way. My only problem with this is that you're training 6 days a week. That doesn't give you a lot of recovery. You want to be very careful with how you organize this. See here on the pull day, I've got deadlifts, and then leg day, I've got squats. So you never want to deadlift the day after squats and vice versa. You don't want to pair deadlifts and squats up on 2 days back to back because they're going to work a lot of the same muscles. The way to avoid this would be to simply have a rest day in between the pull day and the leg day, or you could do this backwards like legs push pull rest, legs push pull. Or you could simply do this a little bit different and have the first leg day starting off with deadlifts and the second leg day starting off with squats, and then just not doing the deadlifts on the pull day, and then that would just remove that problem and you wouldn't have that overlap. So one of the benefits of doing push-pull legs is because you're in the gym 6 days a week, you don't have to do as much during each session. So your workouts are going to take at most an hour, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. So it's going to be nice to kind of get in and out of the gym. But you have to think too, do you really need to train 6 days a week? Because that only leaves you one rest day. And if you look at this is, again, all the same exercises we just did in the upper lower split. So I really think you could just condense this into an upper lower split like the one I showed you on the previous slide. Another thing is the leg day is already very busy. You've already got a lot of stuff that you're doing on the leg day. And you could absolutely turn this first leg day into more of a quad focused leg day and then move the Romanian deadlifts for the second leg day. So this one could be more hamstring focused. I don't know why I didn't organize it that way whenever I was making this chart, so that's my own fault. So you can definitely make this more balanced by getting rid of some of these leg exercises and saving them for this other day. In fact, you could totally take this and base it off of the movement patterns. So like this push day could be a horizontal push day. This could be like a horizontal pull day, and you could have all your horizontal pulls on this day. Throw in some bicep work in there. This can be your squat movement day. Then you can have the vertical push day, vertical pull day, and then the hip hinge day. You can absolutely do something like that. You just got to get creative. Again, it comes down to how you want to organize it. Now moving on to full body. So full body is the classic workout split. Usually it's done in an ABA fashion like this. So you do workout A, rest, workout B, rest, and then usually you just repeat workout A again. That's why all these are highlighted in blue, because these are repeated exercises. So whenever you're doing a full body program, you want to pick really good exercises like squat, bench, deadlift, all this stuff, but you don't want to put a bunch of highly fatiguing movements together in one session. You don't want to do a bunch of different exercises for all of these movement patterns in the same session, because you're going to be in the gym for a long time and you're going to get exhausted, right? A lot of times you want to go into these big exercises really fresh. That's why, firstly, whenever you do a full body program, you should always start with squats or deadlifts. Get those big lower body exercises out of the way first. And then move on to some lighter exercises the further down you go into the program. So Romanian deadlift, pull up. These are not fatiguing exercises. These are just some isolations and then some ab work down here at the bottom. With workout B, we're filling in the gaps that we left here with workout A. Because you're doing full body and you're hitting every muscle in your body in one session, you're not going to be able to get in those 2 compound exercises per movement pattern. It's just not going to happen, guys. You'll be in the gym forever, and you're not really going to be able to put in the work as effectively as you want to. You're just going to be so fatigued that you're not really going to be able to give it your all like you need to. Now, even with a workout B, we're still not getting in every exercise that we had picked out in that list earlier. It's just so hard to fit in all these things just with 2 different workout days. So I'm going to give you an example of another full body split that I think is a little bit better. And so now we're throwing in a workout C. So the exercises that are highlighted in red here are exercises that I didn't even have listed before, but we're throwing them in because why not? It's a little bit more variety. Helps you hit your muscles from different angles. As you can see here, we're doing shrugs now to hit the traps, which we weren't even doing in any of the other splits. You've got leg presses thrown in here, skull crushers. So we've got some more variety, which is really cool. We've got the incline bench thrown back in here. We got the one-arm dumbbell row. Now this is starting to look more well-rounded. We've got those exercises that we wanted to do. Now they're all in here. This is looking a lot better. It's a lot more well-rounded, and I think this is a really solid program. You're still going to be in the gym for kind of a while, but keep in mind, you're only going to be training 3 days a week. You've got 4 days off to recover. You're taking a day off between each session, so that gives you a lot more recovery. Full body is just a really great way to train. Does that mean it's the best way to train? No. Again, the best way to train is a way that you enjoy and a way that makes sense to you. One of the trade-offs to doing full body is that while you're able to hit everything in one session, you're not really directly focused on one specific movement pattern or body part. And I think having that more direct focus can benefit a lot of people, and I know a lot of people like to organize their training that way. These are some important things to avoid whenever you're setting up your training program. Overlap. I talked about this when I talked about the push-pull legs split. You don't want to train one muscle 2 days in a row, which means you don't want to train deadlifts the day after squats and vice versa. You don't want to train shoulders the day after chest, because shoulders and chest are almost always working together. Don't train biceps the day after back, because back and biceps like to work together. Don't train triceps today after chest and shoulders because triceps are involved in all your pressing exercises. You want to give your muscle time to recover for at least 24 hours after you train it, right? So if you're doing full body, that's the reason that you don't come in and train again after your full body, because you want to give all those muscles plenty of time to recover. High fatigue. Now you want to train hard and you're going to be fatigued after a workout, but you don't want to come in to a workout that's going to be overly fatiguing and have squats, deadlifts, heavy bench press, heavy overhead press, heavy rows, a bunch of super heavy, intense exercises all in one workout. So your first exercise for a muscle group should be the one where you can lift the most weight, right? Especially if you're very strength focused and strength oriented. Starting off with a heavy squat, perfectly fine. But you don't want to go and do deadlifts and squats in the same day because that's a lot of weight to move in a session. Plus, if you're doing all that, then you're coming in and bench pressing and then doing some heavy overhead pressing. You want to kind of taper down your exercise selection from exercises that are very heavy and very challenging to exercises that are a little bit more self-limiting. For example, heavy bench pressing followed by dumbbell presses with a deep stretch, or heavy squats followed by Bulgarian split squats. That way, you're still able to train really hard and you're picking really good exercises, but you're not picking a bunch of exercises where you can lift the most weight possible. Which may sound really fun, but that's going to get exhausting after a while. You're not going to be able to keep up with a program like that. So some key takeaways here, guys. There's a lot of different ways to organize your training. Everything I've shown you here is just an example. You can always take what I've given you and build on it. You can always take things away or add things in. Make adjustments as needed. Your training program should be able to suit you and suit your goals. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to things like this. I already talked about why you shouldn't train a muscle 2 days in a row. Quality over quantity. Regardless of your training program, whatever you do, you want to make sure you're doing it very well before you start adding things in. Everything I've given you is just a starting point, and at some point you may need more work than what I've shown you in these examples, but execute every exercise with the best form that you can. Make sure you're getting the absolute most out of what you're doing before you start trying to add things in. Sometimes less is more. Start small and add exercises only when necessary. Train in a way that makes sense to you. And lastly, enjoying your training program will keep you more consistent in the long run.
Alright guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to see more videos like this, as well as exercise tutorials and full workout videos, please go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on the gains. Please follow me on Instagram at Athletic Body Systems, and check out my website, athleticbodysystems.com. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.